Today, we're going to explore a new way of thinking about our relationships. It's an approach that suggests we should focus less on the content of our disagreements and more on the underlying state of our own nervous system. It's a subtle shift, but one that could genuinely change the way we navigate conflict.
It's funny, isn't it? When it comes to our cars, we're so proactive. We get them serviced, we check the oil, we keep an eye on the dashboard lights to prevent a breakdown. But with our most important human connections, we tend to do the exact opposite. We often wait until smoke is pouring out from under the bonnet before we even think about taking a look. We're reactive, not proactive. This is all about changing that. It's about preventative maintenance for our relationships.
And this is the absolute heart of the matter. This one idea changes everything. What if that huge row about whose turn it was to do the washing up wasn't actually about the dishes at all? What if it was really about two separate biological systems, two nervous systems, just trying to feel safe in the world at the exact same time?
So here's how we're going to break this down. We'll start with that idea of the overheating engine. Then we'll get into a simple, color-coded system for understanding your internal state. We'll look at what happens when these different states clash, how that affects the way we communicate, and finally, we'll talk about some really practical tools for a relationship tune-up.
Okay, so first things first, let's reframe the entire problem. This isn't about questioning how much love or commitment exists in a relationship. It's about learning to read our internal dashboard lights. It's about state, not love.
This is the single most powerful diagnostic question you can ask. Forget who's right or who started it. The real question is, what is the physiological state, the color of each person in this moment? It's such a simple question, but it has the power to transform the conversation.
Now, to answer that question, we obviously need a shared language, and this model gives us one using a very simple traffic light system: green, orange, and red. So let's have a look at what each of those colors actually means.
Green. This is that lovely, calm state of safety and connection. When you're in green, you have the resources, the capacity to really listen. You can be curious about where your partner is coming from, and you can work through things without it feeling like an attack. This is the state where real connection and repair can actually happen.
Now, orange. This is a fascinating one because it's so deceptive. Orange is a state of high activation. You're stressed, you're getting things done, you're plowing through your to-do list, you're functioning. From the outside, it can look incredibly productive. But simmering just underneath is this current of irritability and urgency. You're essentially running on anxiety as your fuel. And finally, there's red. This is full-on system overload. Your nervous system is flooded. You're in a state of fight, flight, or even freeze. Your rational, logical brain has gone completely offline. You'll notice your tone of voice sharpens, and those old, unhelpful stories about your relationship just start running on a loop. And the key thing to remember? Absolutely nothing productive ever happens in red.
Okay, so knowing your own color is step one. But the next crucial step is understanding what happens when your state interacts with your partner's state. And this is where we get what are called color clashes.
And you can see how predictable these dynamics are. Green, well, that's the ideal, isn't it? That's where connection happens. But look at red-green. You've got one person who is completely overwhelmed and shutting down, while the other person, probably with the best intentions, keeps talking, trying to fix it, which of course just makes things worse. Or think about orange-orange. That's the classic picture of a couple rushing around, both activated and irritable, snapping at each other over the smallest things. Just recognizing these patterns is a huge step forward. Which brings us right back to that central, powerful idea. It helps us step out of that toxic cycle of blame and defense and into a shared process of diagnosis. It's not about whose fault it is, it's about physiology. And of course, this has a massive impact on how we communicate. I mean, the exact same words can land in completely different ways, all depending on the color the speaker is in. When people are speaking from different colors, a communication breakdown is almost guaranteed. Your own voice is one of the quickest clues to your state. When you're in green, your tone is probably warm, regulated, flexible. In orange, you might notice you start talking faster, there's that edge of urgency, and in red, your voice can tighten up and get really sharp, or it might just go completely flat and robotic as you begin to shut down. This new lens also allows us to see our partner's behavior in a totally new light. What you've always interpreted as indifference, maybe it's actually a red state of shutdown. What feels like constant criticism, perhaps it's really just the outward expression of an orange state of anxiety. And that person who needs space and distance after a long day, Maybe it's not about you at all. Maybe it's just their way of protecting their system from overload to stay out of red.
It really all boils down to this. If you don't have a shared language to name your state, you will almost certainly misinterpret your partner's intent. You'll make it about their character when it's really about their capacity in that specific moment.
Right. So that's the theory. But how do we actually use this? Let's move into the practical side of things. How do we build a regular tune-up routine that stops the engine from overheating in the first place?
Well, instead of waiting for a breakdown, you can build in these simple, structured practices. A daily check-in, just a quick, simple, what color are you in right now? There's no judgment, it's just collecting data. Then a weekly review. Pick one small point of friction from the week, and without trying to solve it, just map out who was in what color. And once a month, ask yourselves, are we actually spending any quality, non-task-based time together in green?
And for a deeper dive, you can ask these questions. What's our default state as a couple? Are we an orange couple, always on the go? What are the specific things that tip each of us into red? What does our repair process look like, or do we even have one? And this is a big one. Can you get good at identifying your own color first, before you start pointing out your partner's?
And this is the golden rule. This underpins the entire approach. You simply cannot solve problems from a state of overwhelm. It's impossible. The first job, every single time, is for one or both of you to find your way back towards green. You have to regulate the system before you can find a resolution. Now, it is so important to be realistic here. The objective is not to live in a constant state of green. That's not just unrealistic, it's impossible. Life is stressful. We're all going to find ourselves in orange and red. The real skill, the real goal of the tune-up is to build awareness of these states, to learn how to move between them more gracefully, and to get much, much better at repair.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. What might change in your most important relationships if you stop trying to fix each other's arguments and instead just started a simple, compassionate practice of naming the color?